Today's Easy 99.1. What's happening? I am Phil Coffey, and I gotta admit, I'm a little bit nervous because I'm about to call the one and only Bill Cosby. So bear with me as I dial these numbers.
Morning.
Howdy.
Howdy.
How you doing today?
Pretty good.
Is Mr. Cosby in?
Not yet.
Okay. Well,
But this is Bill Cosby
this is the Bill Cosby right here.
in person.
Mr. Cosby, how you doing this afternoon?
We just went through this.
Are you doing good?
Yeah.
I forgot. Like when I found out it was you, it erased my memory for a second there.
I know.
Well, we're calling today. We're calling from Boston to talk about your two big shows that you have coming up this Saturday. You're going to be doing not one, but two shows at Boston Symphony Hall. Are you excited to be coming back to Boston?
Well, very much so. I love that hall.
You've played there how many times in the past?
I think in my close to 50 years, I think I've played the hall about 4 times.
And it is always an exciting time whenever you're there?
Well, it is because the hall was not a hall that was thought of for the kind of acts that appeared during my beginning, like in the middle 60s.
Yeah.
When I became well known enough to sell out a show in the very, very middle of the 60s. That hall, of course, people talked about acoustics for a person going out and singing without aid of electricity or anything. So it's wonderful to walk out and feel around the work that went into it.
Do you need a microphone when you're in there, or do you just get up there and just start talking?
Well, you don't really.
Yeah.
But the amplification makes it better for the subtleties. But if you're going out and you're going to give a speech to the union members and get them riled up, you don't need a microphone.
You just go out there and just speak it.
The hall takes care of every little crack.
Now, you have a lot of ties to Massachusetts. Don't you have a home in the state somewhere?
It is for 39 years.
Yeah, so you live here.
It's our home.
You basically live right down the street. It's kind of sort of.
You can call it that if you want to. We were invited by the University of Massachusetts Dean of the School of Ed, and it was my first time playing the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Mm-hmm. And at that time, people like Dr. J played basketball for UMass. Mm-hmm. I finished my show, and in those days, I didn't have my own plane, but to stay overnight was very, very comfortable. So after the show, I was ready to go to my hotel, and I was asked to speak to a professor who represented the dean of the School of Ed. And this professor, I said, yes, of course. And the professor came back and talked to me about the wishes of the dean, because the dean loved my performances, had seen me on TV, and had the 3 albums I made, and he felt that I should consciously make an effort to really highlight more what I was doing in the area of education enhancement. Mm-hmm. And it was wonderful just thinking about it and listening to the professor. And then I met with the dean, and I told him, okay, if I'm going to do these things consciously, here are the projects that I have. And he looked at them. We talked, and then he brought in this fantastic woman, Dr. Norma Jean Anderson. I've never met anyone in education like her. She passed away, but she was just wonderful, and she knew how, even though she didn't know the intricacies of making a Fat Albert or writing a Fat Albert script, mm-hmm. or the Huxtables and things like that. But she knew how to help the student think. And I just had a ball being led led into the formal area of education.
And you ended up going to school there, right? And you ended up getting your master's.
Yes. Oh, yes. The whole idea was to earn my my master's and my EDD.
Now, whenever you went to school, were you on the campus walking in the classrooms? Because this is after you were famous.
Yes.
Did people treat you funny whenever they saw you, Bill Cosby, walk in the class?
No. I think that the people knowing the shift from being fans who are running for autographs, I think mentally what they did was say, hey, he's a student, don't bother him, leave him alone. And I think an awful lot of them went into the opposite direction, sort of just walking and nodding.
Yeah.
And I do want to add that it was in those days, not the day of cell phones.
Yeah. People were taking their pictures.
So people and book bags for that matter, but people walked with their heads up.
Yeah, they weren't staring, texting people and trying to take pictures.
People texting and doing things, and they never even see. Many of them never see who they passed.
Yeah.
Or where they went. I think they can tell from the ground, the site of the pavement, whether it's grass or a curb, exactly where they are before they make their turn.
Well, I'll say this, though, even to this day, though, walking around with the way people are, with them texting and everything, and you are known all over the world, not even just in the United States, but anywhere you go in the world, I would expect people to know who you are. So do you have a chance to ever just kind of walk around and throw a baseball cap on and not have anybody know who you are?
Sure. Well, no, I've not tried that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, for instance, where we live in Shelburne, we go over to Shelburne Falls, go over to Greenfield, go to Amherst. It isn't so much that the people ignore me.
Yeah. But
the greeting is, how are you, Mr. Cosby? How you doing, Dr. Cosby? Hello, how are you? Hey, Bill, how are you? That kind of thing. Down through Springfield or whatever it is. And I think the one place or the places that the reaction startles people, maybe if I walk into a bookstore or into a fast food place, and then the people
they start flipping out.
Well, no, they just, they give a look, and I think an awful lot of the funny part of it is people take a star and they say, is that? And the person says, I think so. And then they go, what would he be doing in here?
Yeah, they don't believe it for a second. They try to work it out, and then by the time they figure it out, you're out. You're done.
Well, and I think, for instance, last night I was in Fort Lauderdale. And no, I wasn't. I was in Tallahassee. So you see, that's my problem. Because over the weekend, I was in California for 2 dates. A place called Redding, and then another place called Marin. 4 shows, 2 each night, obviously. And then from Marin, Northern California, to Tallahassee, and that's Florida State.
So you crisscrossed the country in the span of a few days.
Well, yeah, and so the show did not have to change. My thoughts of what I was going to give them didn't have to change because of the geography, because what I do is I talk about family. Now, the only thing that I did was an ad-lib to the people in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Because they have a football coach who talks. They said, well, and the boys, all these boys, they're just regular boys, and they're the Disney boys.
Yeah.
And I said, they ought to make a talk show out of the former head coach of the Florida State football team and Jesse Jackson, because the two of them would get together. So, well, they say, you are talking to them full fire, and what they are doing. They said, well, the boys. And they said, and the boys. And I said, and that would be a wonderful TV show, because nobody would know what either one said, but they would know what they're saying.
That'd be like a good reality show. Now, Mr. Cosby, you mentioned that you crisscross the country and you're going to be doing 2 shows in Boston this Saturday at the Boston Symphony Hall. Why do it? I mean, obviously you've had so much success over the years. Why are you going all across the country doing 2 shows a day? Is it just for the love of comedy, for the love of the people?
Those two, plus the mind is still functioning. I mean, where do you go if after 48, 49 years of performing, you've always taken the thoughts that you believe to be funny to share? And where do you go if these funny thoughts are still coming that you want to share?
Yeah.
With people, you certainly, and I mean this, you certainly can't do it with your wife of 47 years because she sees you as where are you going with this? And she's already trying to figure out what the punchline is.
She's like somebody trying to figure out the magic trick.
Yeah, so she's no fun. And the children think I'm going to lecture them somewhere in what I'm about to say is a lecture that's hidden.
Yeah.
So, and I use funny stories as the Trojan horse to get them to do what they're supposed to do.
So you got to take it on the road to people that are open.
And they're ready. They are ready. Last night, obviously, Valentine's Day is going to be the next day. So last night, I pointed to a gentleman sitting up front, and I said, "Are you married?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, no. First of all, I was discussing marriage, and I then said to this gentleman, 'Are you married?' And together, he and his wife said yes. So I looked at her, and I said, 'I'm talking to him.' And the people laughed. I said, and I don't know why. Wives, after a while, answer for the husband. And everybody laughed. So I said, 'Now, sir.' He said, 'Yes.' I said, 'How long are you married?' He said, 24 years. She screamed like someone stuck her with a needle in the back. And she said, 27. And the people fell out. Now, I know these people must think that's a couple that he paid, they're part of the act, etc. No, these people were natural.
Yeah.
But then I said to the guy, "Hey, man, I said something, and you just turned it all around in the favor of the wives." And the women started clapping. I said, I made you a hero who was being hassled by your wife that you can't think. And then a woman in the room said, "He's been like that. She's trying to save him." So it's wonderful. The work, the back and forth with the crowd until a certain point, and then we have to shut it down because I also have to recognize when somebody's saying something from the audience trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Which does not last long because I just nip these things very, very early. There was one fellow, he said something out loud, and I said, "What did you say?" And then he said it again, and I just let it sit because he thought it was funny, but the people didn't laugh. And so then I went on and I talked, and then he tried another one. And I said, "Now look, I'm going to work alone here for the rest of the show."
Yeah,
and
there's a reason you're on the stage.
Chuckled and applauded, and then I said, "Now look, you had plenty of time from 7:30 until 8 o'clock. I wasn't here. You could have come up here and you could have done a good 20 minutes. So your time is over." I never heard from him again, and he was laughing and enjoying himself. So I try to use the time as opposed to just picking them up and setting them on fire and then brushing them into the wastepan.